Hello, welcome to the Side Quest podcast. It's me. I'm going to be your host, Smug or Colin. I am joined here by my co-host, Mindz.
Hey, how's it going?
And this is going to be our episode zero, our session zero, if you will. But this is a new podcast idea that I've had in mind for a while, and I think I'd already talked to you about it for a good bit. But this is just going to be a place where we can sit down, relax, and just talk about all things D&D, RPGs, and everything in between. Now, to get started, there's something we did want to do. We want to give you a little bit of a background on ourselves. I'm about 22. I've been playing for almost my entire life, video games, RPGs, and everything. I grew up mostly on console games. And when I was about 5, my aunt had just bought Kingdom Hearts for the first time, which is, I want to say, one of the first like action JRPGs that ever came out. And it was then that I started saving up money as best as I could, and my parents helped me buy a PS2. And I've been playing any RPG I could get my hands on. I played all the Final Fantasies that came out on PlayStation 2, 10, and I think 11 did too. And then every game in between that you could think of. And then when I was about 10 or 11, I finally bought a 360. And that was the first console that I purchased 100% for myself. About a year or so after Reach came out, Halo Reach. And I've been playing with my friends ever since. I've gotten every Xbox console up to date, and now I'm on PC. But I've been gaming for a lot of time, and it's been most of my life. What about you, Mines?
Yeah, pretty much about the same. I started playing video games when I was 4. Played Fantasy Star Super Hang-On the original Sega Master System. When the Nintendo Entertainment System came out, my dad purchased it, and we were playing Ghouls and Goblins. We were playing Tetris. We were playing all sorts of different games. Since then, I've had all sorts of different consoles. The Sega Game Gear, Atari Lynx. I learned how to build a computer when I was 7. And at 13, I had saved up for a year and a half to buy the original PlayStation or PSX for all the gamers out there. At 13, I bought it specifically to play Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
It's one of the games that just absolutely had me insanely hyped for, and it did not disappoint. It is one of my top 3 video games of all time, even to date. After college, I ended up working at Electronic Arts as a quality assurance and game tester for just about 4 years. I stopped right as the EA spouse letter came out. If
Mm-hmm.
you haven't heard about that, that's something you should definitely Google, take a look at. But I worked on games like Buffy the Vampire Slayer for Xbox, 2 different 007 games, Nightfire and Everything or Nothing. And I did a little bit of work on Lord of the Rings Return of the King, Tiger Woods 2004. Other notable appearances of me is probably that I was known as a notorious PK in Ultima Online and World of Warcraft.
I never really got into MMOs. That never came up in my life because I never had a PC until recently.
Well, there's always time to get you started.
Well, I've played a little bit of Black Desert recently, but other than that, no, not really. Uh, it just never came up being a console gamer to begin with. And the second part of that is tabletop. When I was in, I want to say ninth grade, I played my first game of D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, as a player, and I had so much fun. My DM was so good at his job for a ninth grader. And like all of us ninth graders just geeking out and just pretending to be awesome. And we would like actually grab like sticks and stuff and swing at each other and roll die on the playground. Not playground, on what the heck did I say playground? On the lunch table. And we would hold our forks and stuff and pretend to swing at each other. But that game never took off, and it was a lot of fun. And I never got back into it until about halfway through my first semester at college. And that's when I started to play again. And since then, I am now DMing my home game quote unquote home game with my current friend group every Friday, and that's been going for like 3.5 years now. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of sitting in on one of your games, or was it? No, I think it's been about 3 episodes now, and it's
Hmm.
you guys get fairly chaotic. It's great.
Yeah, I definitely have a different group compared to most. A lot of groups like
That is
to,
true.
yeah, a lot of groups like to be the straightforward, we're the good guys. They are definitely not that, but they're not evil. So I've been having a lot of fun with it. What about you on your tabletop side of things?
Tabletop is one of the things that I've kind of wanted to do since I started playing Magic the Gathering in like 97 ish, 97, 98.
That's a good game too.
Um, yes, fantastic game. It's just really expensive to keep up with it. Um, but no, I've always enjoyed stories. I like knowing how things work. I like knowing the origin stories, the backgrounds, why people think the way they do, why people do the things they do, how things work. And kind of being able to craft a story has been something my father's always been really, really good at. He'd come home and he'd tell us, regale us with tales of his travels, and he'd just go to Vegas. But he'd explain kind of exploring the inside of a casino. There's one in Las Vegas called the Luxor, which is just a giant pyramid. They have this whole trilogy thing where you'd go in and you know, literally head underground. You'd be in an elevator shaft, and you'd be going down to the 222nd floor below ground, and the cable would snap, and you'd have this whole interactive adventure that they did where you're trying to find the obelisk, the source of power for the casino. And he came home and told us a story, and I'm like, I want to go. I feel, I
It
felt
sounds
like I was
cool.
there.
Yeah.
And especially being 7 or 8 years old, it's like, man, this is amazing. I want to do what you do.
Yeah.
And later on, I mean, you find out that it's, everybody survives and it's a whole big thing. And it's just something that they did for entertainment. But the fact that he's always been able to tell a good story, and he embellishes things, and he's very expressive with his tone of voice and the different pictures that he can paint with words, D&D always seemed like it was something that was meant for me.
Yeah.
But I never had friends that either wanted to play it, thinking it was too geeky, or oh, it's a LARPer. It's very shunned upon.
Hmm.
People just don't like it. I actually started just over a year ago. I want to say about 15 months.
Yeah.
Um, I've been a part of 3 campaigns, and they are all still going on now. I stream one of them, which is my Friday night game, and it's opened up a world of so many more possibilities. I have a 7-year-old daughter who I'm planning on taking on her first air quotes adventure.
Yeah.
And I found a couple different D&D modules that are geared towards younger children that are just one shots. And I think it's really going to help propel her in the direction of, being creative and using your surroundings, becoming resourceful.
Hmm.
Like there's a lot of life skills that you can learn from it.
That a lot
Within
of
those
people
three
don't take into account.
sessions, yes, exactly. I mean, I know that there's a running joke that people can say, "Yeah, I'm putting all my D&D skills on my resume." It's collaborative team building and this and that,
Yeah.
and people actually have done that. But I mean, there is a truth to that. I mean, if you're dealing with difficult situations with people that you've never met before, yeah, that is a life skill.
Yeah. Being able to
Um,
talk to people and not necessarily improv, but be able to read what people are saying and have a response based on how you feel, and even not how you feel, but how someone else would feel. That's another thing that's huge for me, is being able to step in someone else's shoes, quote unquote.
yeah, getting into their character for
Yeah.
sure.
So, but yeah, you said it's been a little over a year, 3 different campaigns. I was in one of those with you, technically two, but one of those kind of dropped off.
Yes, and it's still going.
Yeah,
We had our session on Monday. I think we're to the point where it hasn't been too much further down the timeline since you've left. It is a very slow
it
game,
is a very
very gritty
slow.
game.
It's a very slow and gritty, and it is tough when it comes to combat and keeping up with what items you have, what money you have left, and stuff like that. So
Yeah, but I mean, it is a lot of fun.
yeah,
It's not as fast moving as some of the other games where we're leveling up every month or so. I think I've been playing it for what, 10 months now, and I've gone from level 3 to level 4.
uh,
So
my
it's very, very slow.
my other campaign, the one I DM for, has been going on for 3 years, and they've gone from 3 to 9 now. Like it's pretty slow, but there's a lot of story stuff that happens in between. So I mean, also every DM's different, and that DM is very, um, not rules lawyer, but very. The way they want to play that game is very difficult and grueling, and it's supposed to be that way.
Yes, and I mean, I enjoy it because it's a different challenge.
It is a different. It is a
He's very good at what he does.
yeah. It is a very different challenge than I'd say any other regular uh D&D game I've ever been in. It is a different style, and it's good. It's just slower paced, and you got to really get into a mindset for it. But
But then on the other hand, in some of the other games, there are a lot of much more exciting encounters, but that's because everybody is very powerful. That means the enemies that you're being thrown up against are very powerful as well.
oh yeah,
There's It's just as difficult combat wise, and RP, there's a lot of the same situations, whether it be difficult, complicated situations, or just people that are, hey, I want that, I want that fishbowl. Bring me
yeah,
that fishbowl. I'll give you some gold.
yeah. But well, I guess you touched on it a second ago, but like the reason you started to play, or the reason you always wanted to get into tabletop RPGs, was because your father and the way he would tell stories. But like, why exactly do you like RPGs and story games more than other types of games? If that makes sense, like more than FPSs, or even in some cases like overall strategy games. Because I know a lot of my friends really enjoy the real time strategy games, RTS, and I just don't enjoy those, and they do. And I'm the one who will sit down and play like 4 or 5 hours straight of The Witcher, or a Final Fantasy game, and they just can't do that. So why do RPGs and D&D and tabletop RPGs appeal to you compared to other games? Out of curiosity.
Well, for me, the RPG aspect of it is the reason why. I mean, role playing game, the typical elements for an RPG are the fact that you can customize your character, your team, your
Mm-hmm.
army, your whatever. It is a grow and evolve and change your character to fit your needs, to fit your play style. Everyone's going to have a different character. Everyone's going to have a different,
Right.
build. I mean, obviously, in some games like Smite and League of Legends, there's very cookie cutter builds. But in an RPG, you can say, yeah, my character would be an archer, but not a typical bow user. I want to be a crossbow archer.
Right.
And you can, pick and choose and get certain perks or certain accessories or things that can actually make the character what you want them to be, as opposed to just saying, oh, it's an archer. Okay, here's your bow shoots an extra arrow, or here your bow does this, or something else. It's the fact that you can take one character and you stick with that character and go through a story. You go through their ups, their downs, their trials, their tribulations.
Yeah.
I mean, the story is kind of the whole drawing point to me. With a fighting game, yeah, it's great. You can do your combos and it's very impressive, very, I wouldn't say repetitive, but they're obviously very,
It's fairly one note.
yes. And same thing with most puzzle games. RTSs is great because it's similar. You have a build style, but you're always picking the same light tank, medium tank, heavy tank, the same 3 or 4 types of infantry. Yeah, you might be a Zerg build, you might be a defensive build, you might be something else, but you're never going to have what you have, say, with The Witcher, where yes, you have your two swords and you have your the different potions and the different draughts that you can have, but you might be a full magic user Witcher. You might be a full melee Witcher. Same thing with the other
Yeah.
games like Fable or some of the other ones where you can completely customize your build. And that's what I think RPGs have over anything else aside from maybe Tetris, is that it's always seriously, Tetris is my favorite game of all time because it's different every single time.
Hmm.
You will never play a game of Tetris where the first 600 pieces are exactly the same. It's
Hmm.
always going to be a different story, if you will. It's going to be a different pattern. It's going to force you to not play the game the same. And the replayability itself is why I like most RPGs. Because with that customization, you're never playing the same game. So it's going to be different more often than trying to go through a fighting game on the hardest level and go through the fighting game on the hardest level again. It's the exact same set of moves.
So you could play an RPG on the hardest level, hardest difficulty, but with like a different build. So not I'm gonna go in as
Yes.
a mage this time, but next time I'm gonna go in as an assassin that has an ally that's a tank. So I'm gonna run around and steal everything and then kill the guy while my tank is doing the work in front of me, or something like that. Because I
Correct.
know Divinity Original Sin 2 does that very well, where if you have enough points into sneak, you can literally walk around the battlefield completely invisible to everyone while your entire team is in a combat timer and taking turns, but you're just walking around like normal. And I always thought that's one of my favorite things because you can have someone in combat with the big bad guy of the area, and your assassin or thief can walk up behind him and literally pick his pocket in the middle of combat. But you can't do that if you don't have an assassin with you. So next time you play through, you don't have an assassin, you have to kill him to get the key or something like, or things along that nature. It's just different play styles and different ways to play every single time so that one playthrough is never the same as the next one.
Yeah, and Divinity is one of the ones that I have yet to play, but I've heard nothing but good things
It
about.
is totally worth. I have a mod pack that I can send you that's just a bunch of really cool things that don't take away from the experience, but don't destroy it either. Because there's a lot of mods for other games that just make it not the same game. So I have a really good mod pack I can send you. It's really good.
Cool.
But that is definitely a game that is worth taking a step into. And that's another one is multiplayer. Like, especially with video games, there's something you don't get sometimes, and that's a multiplayer experience for an RPG. Um, like all of my favorite RPGs I can think of: Witcher, Final Fantasy, Tales of Arise, the Tales series, the Kingdom Hearts series. All of those are single player, like through and through. But with tabletop, it's not like that. And that's one thing I really liked about Divinity is that it's up to 4 players and each of you can be completely different builds and still play through the game and have fun.
That's awesome.
And I don't think there's another multiplayer RPG like that I can think of that's virtual. Period.
Gloomhaven, maybe?
Maybe,
But
but
that is
I've
more
never
of a
played that.
tabletop as yeah, that's more of a tabletop, like a true virtual online version of a tabletop RPG
Mm-hmm.
than say Divinity, which is more of a video game setting.
With
But
tabletop aspects like turn based and stuff like that.
correct. Gloomhaven is an actual board game that you can set up that is meant to mimic um, like modular floors and dungeon environments so that you can actually set up specific battles.
Hmm.
And I guess you level up your characters, and once you level up a character, it will unlock another character that you can level up after retiring the first one, which has different skills, different abilities. But again, it puts you in a very specific environment and scenario that you have to play out, and you go through. It's, you're fighting 5 skeleton archers and 2 skeleton mages in a dungeon setting.
Right.
And you might go to a sewer and face a were rat and 4 were crocs kind of thing.
Yeah. But I guess another question would be, um, like, there's a lot of games out there and a lot of tabletop games and a lot of different video games. But what would you pick as your favorite that stands out? I know you mentioned Final Fantasy, but like, if you had to pick one, what would it be? You said Tetris too,
If I had to pick a series
or
or a
single game.
specific game,
Yeah.
if it's a single game, my favorite game of all time, as I mentioned before, is Tetris. Hands down, there's no question about it.
Okay.
It does not have a story, though. If you're including everything and creating kind of like a series of games around it,
Mm-hmm.
it's either going to be Final Fantasy,
Okay.
specifically Final Fantasy VII's
Was
story.
so good.
I don't know. I loved
It's
it so much. The remake,
so good.
the way they changed it, not so much, but the original story I loved. The only other one that comes close is the Assassin's Creed Ezio trilogy.
Ooh, that Ezio trilogy was good.
And the reason that's up there is the story, being touching on historical references and
Right.
historical time periods and being fairly close to reality,
Mm-hmm.
granted taking liberties where and when they could. But the multiplayer that they had, I've yet to find another multiplayer where you're trying to be stealth. You're trying to assassinate your target, all while trying not to be assassinated yourself. There's just something about those three things at the same time.
Yep.
It's not like a FPS deathmatch where you're just, okay, I see somebody, I shoot them. You're
Yeah.
blending in with your surroundings, you're climbing walls, which isn't necessarily the way to do it. You have a ranged weapon, you have melee weapons, you can chase somebody all around and alert everybody to your presence. But there's so many different ways that you can do it. Again, it's never going to be the same
Mm-hmm.
each time. What about yours?
Um, if I had to pick just one to stand out, it's pretty obvious if you know me. When I bought my first PS2, it was specifically so I could play Kingdom Hearts 1 while not at my aunt's house. She's the one who had a PlayStation. My dad had one, but we broke it, so we never played it anymore. And then I went over to her house, and she had Kingdom Hearts 1, and I saw on my TV screen Aladdin, and I saw Ariel, and I saw Jack from Halloween Town. And that has been my favorite thing, is to be able to step into a Disney story as a movable character and just play through it. And with a little bit of a twist of typical JRPG, big bad guy doing big bad evil things everywhere, but we don't know who he is until the very end of the game style. That was one of my favorite things to do as a kid, was step into those Disney worlds, and I would run around for hours, like hours upon hours. That is pretty unhealthy in hindsight, but regardless, that would probably be my favorite. Right under it would be the Final Fantasy series, just as a whole. I don't think there's a single one that I dislike. There's a couple that are, better than others, but the one I sunk the most time into would be Final Fantasy 13, 13-2, and Lightning Returns, just because that was on the 360 when I got it, and that was like the ones that were coming out at the time. Because I missed the original Final Fantasy 7 days. I have played it, but it was so long after it actually came out that I missed the hype of being one of the first. But yeah, that'd be my answer. And then if it's for a typical like Western RPG, definitely The Witcher 3. Hands down. It's just so clean in its world building and storytelling. And the combat's actually better than The Witcher 2. And I can't think of another one that's clean and has a good story. Because there's other games like Skyrim, Dragon Age Inquisition that have good stories, but they're not clean, or they're clean, but the story's kind of poop. So,
Yeah, and the one thing that I like about The Witcher over, say, like a Dragon Age game is that you're not micromanaging. They don't give you the halfway attempt at micromanaging your entire party. You can swap to somebody and then say,
oh,
okay, I want you to do something else, and then swap back to your main character. one
Yeah.
reason I like the traditional JRPGs with the turn-based or the ATB type system is the fact that you can micromanage everything. You can
Hmm.
say, I want you to cast this at this time, or no, I want you to hold off. Don't do a thing.
Yeah. Stop.
Okay, he's getting ready to do something. Okay, now cast your
Yeah.
heal or cast your protection spell, whatever it is.
Hmm.
But no, The Witcher is fantastic, and especially
Yeah.
with the whole Netflix series that came out.
Oh my
I know
god! I
some
just
people
finished.
don't like it, some people
Oh.
love it. It's a really good compliment to get people to experience the stories.
Yeah.
I think they did a great job
Yeah.
with either the whether it's the acting, the screenwriting, the
Mhm.
music, just something about it really. I mean, we watched it and my wife wanted me to play The Witcher. So we went and we got The Witcher. It happened to be on sale. And we played through The Witchers because of the Netflix series.
Yeah.
It was
And
phenomenal. I'm glad we did it.
yeah, and I just finished season 2, and after having read 2 of the books, played 2 of the games, and seen both seasons of the show, and a lot of twos, um, they are definitely paying a lot more homage to the books than the games. So if you've only
Yes,
played the
absolutely.
games, you're gonna feel like, oh my gosh, why? This is not how it looked in the game. Yeah, because they're really basing it off the books a lot more heavily, especially in season 1 where it's skipping time frames. The book doesn't do that, but you can really feel the attention to detail compared to then when you're comparing it to the book, at least.
That's
So
good to know because I haven't read any of the books and I've been told I need to.
you don't need to. If you played the game, at least The Witcher 3, and you understand what happens in the first one and the second one, you're honestly fine. But they are good books to go back and read. They are still very well written. So,
Awesome. That's good to know.
um,
Well, speaking of memorable moments and kind of the things that are going on, what is one of your most memorable moments in gaming in general?
um, okay. So this one is not a video game. This is, I want to say, like the 5th active session of the current D&D campaign I am DMing. It was like 3 years ago. We'd played through a bit, but I was learning how Roll20 worked, and everyone else in my campaign is brand new to D&D at the time. Like, no one has ever played other than one person, and even then, he'd played like one game. So we're all learning, and I've never DM'd before. So we finally figured it out, and we reset, and we started playing again. 5th session, I had been building up this quest for them to take this box that they're not allowed to open. They can. They don't have a key, but if they want to break it open, they totally could. They are tasked with taking this box up to the northern city on the coast. It's the only city in this country that has a port. They're tasked with taking that box there. So they take the box with them and they set off. And they finally get to the crossroads where you either turn north to go to the port or you turn south to go to the capital. And they roll up and there's a checkpoint. And the guard asks, "Hey, can I see your papers? If you don't have papers, can I at least get a name?" And they all look to each other. Some of them lie about their names, some of them don't. And then at one point, they said, "Well, why? Well, if you're headed in to go to the capital, why aren't you going up there? Why y'all coming from the other way?" "Oh, the road was closed. Road's closed. You can't get to the port city at the moment." "What do you mean?" "Well, you can't get to the port city. There's like stuff all over the main road. You have to take a back path and it's very dangerous." "No, it's not." And they rolled a natural 20 on the deception check to
And
convince
for
the
those that aren't in the know, a natural 20 basically means you succeed at whatever you want to do with flying colors. So if you're trying to deceive somebody, it's they believe you as if your word is the word of God,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Well, in some cases, it's not a guaranteed success. It's just you avoid the terrible outcome. Like, you're not going to convince a king to give up his throne to you with a natural 20, but you won't get thrown in jail for it. Regardless, so he rolls a natural 20 on the deception check to convince the guard at the checkpoint that the road was closed to go to the port city. So they're going south instead and just going to take care of some extra business. And this was the point where I realized my group was so chaotic that they would take all of this story I had built up for them and say, you know what? We're going south. We're not going where you wanted to go. So they went south. And because of that, I started working on stuff in the background. And I told my players that if you decide not to do something, or you decide to help do something, or you decide to avoid something I've hinted at, I will treat it as though it's still happening. The world doesn't freeze around you. So because of that, I want to say like 12 sessions later, they're chilling out in the capital city after finishing a different job with the box still in their inventory, and they get word, and the whole town, the whole city begins to go a little quiet as they learn that Barberg is in the northern port city is in ashes from an enemy attack that they could have stopped if they went, or could have been a part of if they had gone up there, or some other things. But they do learn one thing. There were a lot of lives saved because a lot of people were taking a secondary route because the road was closed. So that's one of my favorite moments, is hearing their reaction to, oh crap, oh, did we kill all those people because we didn't go up there? Did our DM really just make it to where because we didn't do something, everyone's dead? Oh, we still had an effect. Whoa, okay. So they've yet to still go there, but just little things like that, or I guess even big things like that, make such memorable moments in storytelling and in playing Dungeons and Dragons and being part of a group that really like plays well together, that one stupid lie that we all laugh at to this day of the road being closed can just stick with us. And that's probably my most memorable moment in gaming, at least recently.
Wow, that's that's pretty cool.
The road's closed.
Yeah, I mean,
you're not going up there.
I mean, having a dynamic story like that, or I guess dynamic world,
Yeah.
really does put into perspective the fact that, yeah, one person can change the world,
Oh,
especially if you roll a natural 20 on deception.
Well,
um,
to that point, I'm not going to say what the outcome is yet because my players haven't learned it. But one of our players left and is in the military and went on leave, or went on deployment, I mean. And so we have a temporary pause in the main story. But I also said the story doesn't stop if you ignore it. So they decided to teleport to a completely different country and just have a little side quest going on. But the main quest is still happening. So they don't know the outcome of that, but one player does, and that's all I'm going to say. And it's going to be spicy.
I can imagine. I look forward to hearing what happens when they actually do figure that out.
Yeah, me too. But
Yeah, my most memorable moment is nowhere near as memorable as that. I mean, it kind of can be, but for one of my first campaigns that I'm playing, which is my Thursday game, which we just had a session this morning, I'm playing a human variant fighter. It's one of the most commonly played classes and
right.
races for newer D&D people.
Yeah. It's simple.
And it's simple. It's easy to learn. It was just something fun for me to do to kind of get used to the world of D&D. We started off at level 3 and now we're level 6. Mm-hmm. Yes, because I'm fighter 5 with Battlemaster and I'm a rogue 1. Everything else is going to go into rogue, and my original thought for the character was I'm going to trip them and I'm going to literally just stab them at advantage and get sneak attack and all these different attacks that I can do with the human fighter.
Right.
Well, the DM has a homebrew version of a fighting style called Main Gauche or Mind Gauche, which is a
Okay.
left-handed dagger, a parrying dagger for its two-weapon fighting.
Yeah.
So if I attack with my bonus action with my offhand weapon, it gives the enemy disadvantage on their next attacks against me for a round, or a turn, I guess. And I went through, and our DM decided to throw us a bunch of goblins. We're trying to find the goblin castle. And we make it to the castle, and there's a room of about 13 different goblins.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a low level campaign. Everything's going to have a lot of low level creatures.
Right.
Well, with the fighter, you get an ability called Action Surge. So you get an extra attack phase or attack action. And each one of my attack actions has an extra attack for being level 5 in fighter. And we went through, I think it was the second turn, and the goblin chef that happened to be there had turned around and just kind of smiled, and everybody in the kitchen turned towards us as we had opened the door, and I had literally skewered one goblin through the throat, and that was where we started this episode. So my first thing is my character, who's a very arrogant but able to back it up kind of fighter,
Yeah.
just kind of smirks and says, "Who's up for some goblin stew?" Something along those lines. I can't remember exactly what it was. And I proceeded to move 5 feet. I swung, used sweeping strike, and crit. Took out 2 goblins in a single swing.
Ooh.
I turned, I stabbed a third goblin with my masterwork rapier. One shot him with another natural 20.
Oh my gosh.
I moved 10 feet. I used Action Surge.
You didn't get 3 in a row, did you?
Huh?
You didn't get 3 crits in a row, did you?
No, I rolled a 19 with my plus 8 to attack. So it was
What
a
level?
27 instead of a level. I think we were level 6.
6? Okay, that's more understandable. You said low level, so I was just like, level 3? How the heck do you have a plus 8?
Low level compared to level 20.
Fair enough.
I mean, I'm either 18 or 20 dex, and I've got the plus 1 rapier. Plus proficiency. So the third goblin with the second swing is dead. I move 10 feet. I roll a 19. So I kill that goblin and another one with sweeping strike. My fourth attack hits a 6th goblin. I move another 5 steps, and now I'm 3/4 of the way to the goblin chef. I use my offhand, and another natural 20.
Oh my
Crit another goblin.
Get 3. Jesus.
So here it is. We have 13 goblins in the room. I've gone through half the room in one turn, smirking the entire time, and we have the rest of the party has yet to move, as has the chef.
Oh yeah.
There were 2 goblins that at this point the DM was just so blown away with the fact that I had gotten so many natural 20s. He's just like, yeah, these 2 goblins,
scared.
They're just gone. They burst through the door and start yelling and screaming. And now there's left with 3 goblins, right? 3, 7,
yeah,
8, 9, 10. Yeah, there's like 4 or 5 goblins left, and then the head chef. And the rest of the party is like, okay, yeah, pick you off. The goblin chef comes in and doesn't even look at anybody else. Just comes up and tries to attack me.
Yeah, you killed like all of his minions.
Misses the first one, and I riposte, being one of the other battle maneuvers, and that was a 19. It was not another 20. But needless to say, the next turn I ended up rolling 18, 20, 19, 19, and that was the end of that battle. And that was, I don't think I've ever rolled or will ever roll that good again.
Yeah,
any campaign in any history, but that's probably the one moment that has really stuck out in my mind, especially of a TTRPG.
Dude, as a player, that is just like the most emboldening feeling of, I am the reason this combat went so smooth. I am the reason the big bad guy of this area is scared and shaking in his boots. That's a good feeling as a player.
Yes, especially after the fact that we've been fighting all these undead and magical creatures, and my character, my fighter, has no magical
Yep.
damage.
Yep.
So I've been doing half damage or quarter damage or completely whiffing because they're ethereal and they can only be damaged by magical means. And here we are, we get to the castle, and it's like, okay, my character Tristan Haldane is now known as Tristan the Butcher because I can go full blunder mode. So it was nice to actually
That's
feel useful for
awesome.
once.
Yeah, that's awesome. Dude. Being able to just walk into a room with a D&D character and just kill everyone.
Yeah, it's just like swing, 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 swing. Okay, I feel like I'm in an anime, and I've launched my desperation mode kind of thing where you're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
absolutely berserk on people.
The way you described it almost reminds me. I don't know if anyone's watched Naruto, but like Killer Bee, and he holds like 7 swords and does nothing but spin around and just hit people like bam, 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 bam. That's what I saw in my head, at least.
Yes, and that's why they nicknamed it Blender mode, because
Blender
it's,
mode.
it's not quite a whirlwind, but yeah, it looks like a blender blade.
Just mowing through them.
Especially with sweeping strikes, that really makes it feel like you're cleaving people.
Yeah, for real.
With the thing.
And just hitting multiple people at once. Dude, that is such an empowering moment as a player, man.
Yes. And the best part is everybody that was kind of part of the party had never seen rolls that well before.
Right.
And the DM was just like, there's only been one time that somebody has come close to just completely obliterating a battle, and that was in one of my in-person games.
Right.
Where they actually had my DM for this game. He was a player in that game. Switch dice because they weren't sure if he was actually using loaded dice. And so now, even when he's on a virtual tabletop like Roll20, he's a lot of the roles that are super important, he will make public as opposed to private, because he wants everyone to know that, no, he's not cheating. Because there's a lot of kind of concerns for virtual tabletop versus in-person tabletop. Right. You might be rolling the dice behind the screen, but you can always lift up the screen and say, nope, look for yourself. I haven't touched the dice, this and that.
Yep.
And online, it's a little more difficult to do that.
Right.
Unless you're making all your rolls in public.
Right. I keep my roles as a DM hidden, and everyone else's are public unless they whisper them to me for certain things. But I have already told my players, if you don't believe me, ask me to send a picture. I will gladly take a picture and send it to Snapchat through our group chat that we have. Because I like having that unknowing of what the bad guys are doing, And I don't fudge rolls often, but I do when I notice a combat session is like, wow, this monster's literally doing nothing, and all of them are still at full health, and it's turn 3. Like, the monster's almost dead, and everyone's at full health. I'm giving it a new ability that's not on the character sheet, and I'm giving it a higher damage roll, and I'm changing the DC if I know the combat's like weak, or vice versa. Like a couple weeks ago, I put my characters in a Kraken fight at level 9, but it was significantly nerfed. They weren't fighting the Kraken; they were fighting just the tendrils. They were fighting just the tentacles. So the tentacles had significantly less health, like they have like an average health pool, and then it had access to all of its normal damage with a lower hit modifier and a lower amount of attacks per turn. So I nerfed it down, but I didn't nerf it enough. So we almost lost 2 players. And to quote Percy, the wizard, in the group, to quote what he said, that is the most tense 2 rolls I've ever made in my life. I was literally staring at my Google Doc I have of backup characters, thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then the Kraken failed to save, And for that one, I sent pictures to the group chat. The Kraken actually failed the saving throw on the spell he cast, which allowed him to get away. It was literally 2 rolls that decided whether or not his character lived or died. And it was tense as hell. Oh, because everyone's out of range except for him, and he goes after the Kraken's next turn. So if he...
Yeah. Sounds like a himbo.
Yeah. So, but he got away. Everyone's alive. It was an amazing session. But that's just another one of the times that I would really love to be in person, because I would love to see his face when he's like... As a DM, it's kind of... what's it called? Kind of sadistic to like want to see your players go, oh God. Oh man. Whoa, man. What am I going to do? You see them rubbing their forehead and everything. But we all play virtually, so... I don't get to see that. That's one thing I would just really like about playing in person more. But I'm bad at math, so I don't like adding my dice up.
Yeah, so that's actually another thing to kind of touch on for this is virtual tabletops versus in-person tabletops. You kind of get the feel of everything.
Right.
You get the ambience, you get to see people's reactions.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone has a camera online, but when you're playing in person, there's a lot of pros and cons to that versus a virtual tabletop where everything is kind of added up for you and you don't have to even think about it. It's like you click the button and it adds all your bonuses and everything is kind of taken care for you.
Right.
Do you prefer one versus the other, and why?
As of now, I prefer virtual. And that's just as a DM, I don't have the creativity, time, or money to do battle maps the way I would want them to be done if I was in person. I would want 3D battle maps with character tokens that look like their characters they're supposed to. Not perfect, but noticeably that's my dwarf barbarian right there. That's how he would look somewhat. Or even the monsters. Like, I would want a Tiamat statue if they were fighting a version of an avatar of Tiamat. Or I would want a Tarask statue. I would want a Demogorgon statue. I like online because as a not very artistic person, it gives me that leeway to make things digitally that I can't make in person. Like battle maps, I would want my dungeon to look like a dungeon, or my sewer map that I have them on to look somewhat like a sewer on the table. I don't want to draw on paper like I used to when I was in high school and for my couple sessions in college.
Yeah, I mean, having a good looking scene, a good atmosphere and environment really kind of adds to the immersion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, I mean, there's a lot of theater of mind that's going on. And if you want to have a specific sewer environment, you can describe as much as you want, but nobody's ever going to know what your vision is. They're going to have their own vision of it.
Yeah.
And if you have like modular dungeon walls or something that you can put on a table and build this whole thing, yeah, you know that there's an actual sewer grate right over here. That's exactly 6 feet away from such and such.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, yeah, you see it's over there near the corner kind of thing.
Yeah. And if you draw, I used to draw them on, we used to draw our maps on, what's it called? Not parchment paper.
Transparencies?
No, not parchment paper, but it's the paper with grid paper. We do it on grid paper, and we'd use like thimbles and stuff for our characters. And he would use, is it jacks? The little, it's like 6 spokes that stick out. I don't remember the game, but
yeah, jacks.
Yeah.
They look like little caltrops.
Yeah, little caltrops. We'd put those as bad guys, and we would be thimbles or an eraser head or whatever we had. And we would literally draw the walls, and he would just say, yeah, there's a trap here, and once you've triggered the trap, you put an X on it, kind of stuff. But nothing sticks out better than when you're playing on a digital map that someone's made, and if they do it right, which I've tried a couple times, and I haven't quite gotten it right, you can make one tile look just slightly different colors or things like that. So their character would be able to, without a perception check, go, oh, that looks funny, but if they're not paying attention, they walk over it. You can say, oh, you triggered a trap. What do you mean? Well, look, you look around, and right as you take a step, you realize, oh crap, as you trigger a trap and arrows start to fly from the wall or something like that.
Yeah, poison dart trap kind of thing.
Yeah,
Because it's a pressure sensitive thing. Yeah, no, that's
little things like that I can't do physically because I don't have the artistic mind for it or the time or money. So doing it digitally allows me to use Incarnate and just upload a map that I make or one that I find even just to use once or twice and be done with it. Maybe I can recycle it and use it for another campaign or another one shot or something. It gives me a nice catalog of stuff to do. But there is one thing I would like to do. If I ever get to play in person again, I've seen people build gaming tables with a TV inside. Now, that would be awesome because I can digitally make a map and we can put real minis for the characters on the squares that are just on the screen.
On top of the plexiglass that's on top of the monitor. So you're not actually touching the monitor or the TV itself.
But I've seen gaming tables like that, and that's like long-term goal. If I ever get to play in person again with multiple people.
Oh yeah, those are easily $1,200, $2,000, $3,000
well,
tables.
I would definitely get. I have a buddy of mine who does woodworking a little bit. I would definitely get his help and just pay him for the materials.
Yes,
and
actually there was. God, what was it called? It was the Avenger table, I think. The plans were like $30. But it was literally step-by-step instructions as well as the templates and everything that you would need to build your own.
You just have to get the materials, and here's the process.
The materials and build it yourself. But yeah, that would definitely be a really cool thing if you know somebody that is a woodworker.
Yeah. But that's a long-term goal, is to be able to do that and have an in-person table again. I definitely prefer in person when it comes to talking to people and you get to see their facial expressions and it almost plays out like a theater or something, like you're actually interacting with them. And especially me, I do a lot of voices for my characters. Mm-hmm. So it really can give you a sense of what that character is when I can also show you how they'd be walking. Like if it's an old lady and they're talking like this to you. And you can see their backs hunched over, and you can actually see me making those movements. It's a lot better, in my opinion. But virtual is really good for those that don't have the creativity to be a DM or even a player for some people, because some people are just camera shy, and they're shy around other people face to face. So...
yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, I myself, I feel like I'm an extroverted introvert.
Yep.
Like I don't stream with a camera, mainly because I don't have one, but also I kind of like having the anonymity of people not knowing what I look like. I've had a bunch of people tell me, "Oh, I'll buy you a camera if you stream, with a camera." Okay, well, send it over and I'll start using it. But no, I feel like I would open up and I really would love to do voices and this and that and really kind of get into the character. Yeah. So again, if I'm playing my own character, I'm going to act like my own character. Whether it be a benevolent paladin who's on a holy quest to do this, or a chaotic good kind of rogue where it's he's the very
Robin Hood style.
Yeah. Robin Hood would be a good analogy. Or if I'm trying to be somebody who's misunderstood, who people assume is lawful evil, but in reality, he just wants to do what he does for himself. It's hard to find parties that allow things like that, but it's not necessarily evil, but like true neutral. Being able to get into character using voices and animation, or not animations, but animated movements, and being able to see people's reactions really kind of fuel my creativity. Like in the campaign that I'm trying to do, I've been writing my own campaign for several months now. I'm planning to have 5 or 6 different twists that are, Darth Vader twists. Like I want to
Ooh,
see everybody's reactions to when I say something like, "Yeah, you've just stopped the ritual, you've saved the world,"
right.
but then there's a rumble. The ritual that you seen that you wanted to stop has
Huh.
caused the destruction of the world.
Oh
At end
no.
session, something along those lines. You've defeated the BBEG, or so you think. The BBEG is really just the good person that happened to be possessed, and now you've unleashed their spirit among the planet,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Like I want to see everybody's reactions when that comes to it. And if you're online, you can't really do that. Whereas in person, there's no hiding their reaction.
Right.
But I agree with you. Having all the roles being electronic, even for the people that don't know what they're doing, you can help them set up a character sheet, and they say, "Yeah, I want to roll with my +3 Warhammer." You click on it, all the bonuses, the sneak attack, the bless, all everything is already included. It's
Yeah.
very simple, very easy, and you can do a lot of things that you can't necessarily do with a in-person game. You have like animated weather. You have animations for the spells. So if somebody casts Finger of Death or Eldritch Blast or Firebolt, you can actually see the firebolt travel from one token to the other, and then there's a big explosion, and then there's cinders and like wood smoldering on the ground.
Yeah.
Which you can't really do in person unless you're setting up incense and trying to do all sorts of things to make it really, really extra, in
Yeah,
person.
which is a little overboard even for my taste.
I mean, I want to put on a theater when I play,
Yeah. I feel that
but
too.
I think it's going to be much easier to put on more of a theater in person, or excuse me, online, and just try and have everybody on camera.
Hmm.
Maybe not myself, but some of the players, because it's not that I want to see them on their phone or something when it's not their turn. It's for those moments, those bombs that are dropped, that I think really puts a smile on my face, knowing that I can get people involved enough that when a twist comes, the look of shock, the look of
Yeah.
terror, the look of elation, just the what kind of feeling.
Yeah,
Like,
which you can't.
those are the moments that I want to live to DM for,
Yeah,
kind of
you
thing.
can't capture that virtually very easily. So, but that's definitely something I want to work towards, is being able to play in person again. But my group is super spread out. We got a lot of people in Louisiana, 2 people up here in Arkansas, and we got 1 guy in Japan. So we are spread out.
Yeah, for our stream, we have 2 people in California, 1 person in Washington, somebody in Arizona, and our DM's in Nova Scotia.
Canada.
4 hours ahead of us, and we start at midnight his time.
Yeah. I don't know how he stays up that late. I can't do that every day.
Now,
And I
he
can't do
doesn't
it
do it
as.
every day. That's why it's on a Friday night, because it's going into Saturday, so he can sleep in afterwards.
See, my schedule's weird. I'm off Thursday, Fridays.
Yeah, well, then for you, it would be Wednesday night. Would
Right,
be
right,
the equivalent.
right. Uh, but yeah, I think that's a really good goal to have, is to go back to in person, especially with how COVID's been recently and everything. I think going back to in person is definitely a goal. Uh, and
Yeah,
that's
but as you said, going back to in person and kind of having a hybrid with electronic things, I think is really going to be the future of where D&D is going.
I do too.
Yes, everyone's going to have pen and paper, but the people that can create the virtual tabletop, even if it's just for their players to be using like iPads to click a button and have it roll and show on the big screen in the middle of the table, um, I really think that's going to be the direction that a lot of people are going to go post COVID.
Right, yeah. That is going to be a very nice direction to go, I think. Um, but yeah, that's really how you make your memories, though, is the in person games. Like,
Absolutely.
As good as we've been hyping up what you can do with virtual and what you can do with the hybrid, the in-person games is just really where you make memories, man.
Yes, because you're right there. You can high five each other. You can talk
Oh yeah.
smack to each other. Like, did you really just think that was a smart move? I mean, you went right up to the ogre and flipped him off to his face within melee range.
Of course I wasn't thinking, have you seen my character's intelligence? It's at 7.
Exactly. It's, oh yeah, he's a bad guy. I thought I could cleave him in two with my war sword. That's the BBEG and he's a wraith. Well, he's evil. I slay evil. Smash. No, it doesn't work that way.
Gork smash. Yep. But yeah, I think we're just about at an hour anyways. But man, it was really nice talking to you long term.
Yeah, you too, man.
On just RPGs, gaming, and just stories and stuff. That's really what this podcast is going to be all about. Is talking about stories, where we're at, Dungeons and Dragons, RPGs, video games, and just being able to sit down and relax. So
yeah, it's always nice to unwind, especially towards the end of the week. And I mean, you and I mean, we've known each other for just about a year now.
Just about a year, yeah.
And I know we can sit here and talk video games all day long.
Oh yeah.
There's no question about that. That's one of the things that we're both passionate about. I think this has been a really fun session, and I can't wait to see where it takes off to.
Yeah, I would like to see it take off as well. But like I said earlier, this is our episode 0, session 0 even. But I think we're going to keep them on Thursdays. Is that all right with you?
That should be fine for most weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to keep it on Thursdays. This episode was recorded. We plan to move to streaming at some point. So keep an eye out for that. We'll keep announcements up in the Eden server and then my server as well on Discord. My link for my server is not public just yet, but keep an eye out for it on my Twitch channel at smug_F5. My YouTube's channel is just smugF5. Mindz, you got anything you want to plug?
No, I mean, I run a couple different Discords, but the Eden one is our D&D community Discord, and my streaming one is called the Iron Empire. Stream Friday nights at 8. If you want an invite to that Discord, feel free to swing by my Twitch channel.
All right. Also, I can put the Eden server in the description. Is that okay? Just making sure.
Yeah, that's fine.
Before I confirm that. But yeah, link to the Eden server will be in the description of this video. This is really meant to be also for audio for those that don't want to watch just some lights glowing every now and then while we're talking. But it's been fun to sit down, and I hope this takes off a lot. So with that, this has been the SideQuest podcast, and I guess we'll see you all next week.
All right, catch you then.
See ya.
Have a good one.